Hello and welcome in, Guardians. I am coming to you today to tell you, nor convince you, that Root of Nightmares, the new Lightfall raid, was the best contest mode ever. Let's get into it. Now, first things first, let's address the elephant in the room that no matter what I say today, some people will agree and some people will hate me. And I say those two things very specifically because that seems to be how this conversation goes, or conversations like this in general. It's some positivity, but a lot of negativity. And so what I hope to do today is actually just get into some conversation about what's going on that allows us to ask some questions, get into some civil discussion, emphasis on civil, and then, if we need to, agree to disagree. For those new to the channel or just new to Destiny in general, contest mode is the mode that is enabled whenever we get a new raid inside Destiny 2 that caps our Guardian's power level lower than the enemies inside of the raid. This, in addition to learning a whole new raid from scratch, learning all the mechanics, all the different ways that it functions, combines to what is supposed to be a high difficulty activity that is meant to be completed within typically the first 24, but in recent memory, the first 48 hours. As a reward, you get a cool emblem, you get bragging rights, and you get to flex your achievement in the community. All right, now that we're all up to speed, let's get into this week's drama, because there is drama every single week. I'm laughing, but very serious. Anyways, with Root of Nightmares, we have seen in the Destiny community some of the highest rates of completions in terms of contest modes raids that we've seen in Destiny 2 community history. According to a tweet from D1 Alpha Veteran, a record 45,541 Guardians completed the Root of Nightmares raid in the first 48 hours. We're not going to go into the whole 24 versus 48 debate. If you're interested in that, I have a whole video on that, but we're not going to talk about that today. What we are going to talk about is the polarization that's happening because of such a high completion rate. As you can imagine, there are two wide varying spectrums of this argument. Either folks view this high number as the rate was just too easy, it wasn't up to par in terms of what raiders and people who would typically attempt contest mode should expect from these type of events. And others who think in many ways it was actually very accessible and very fair in terms of the difficulty level for the majority of the community. I'll talk about my perspective in just one second, but let's first talk about numbers in perspective. As someone who enjoys looking at Excel sheets and numbers and all types of cool data, when I look at that number, 45,541, I don't really see, oh my God, this is a big scary number, this was like so easy, or I don't see that. What I do see is a community of Guardians who were able to complete again, save for arguments, let's call it some level of difficulty, contest mode encounter. It's higher difficulty than most other things in the game. 45,000 plus Guardians who are able to complete that objective, that activity, be able to get that accomplishment on the books and feel a level of pride that many folks have not seen in their whole entire Destiny 2 career. I don't know if I just have a really well curated Twitter or if I just lucked out and follow some really cool homies. But the fact is, when I looked on my timeline, all I saw was either Sherpas and people who are experienced at the game congratulating people for getting that clear and getting that accomplishment, or I saw Guardians who had never got a day one clear actually be able to get that under their belts. But you said you're going to talk about numbers and perspective. Well, here we go. 45,541, and yes, I'm going to keep saying that number, is a part of the community. But the key question here is, what part of the community is that? As of the most recent Steam chart data info, again, this is just Steam. This does not include all the other data that we have in terms of all the active Guardians. But according to the Steam charts alone, which I think it's a valid and helpful number in this scenario, is that as of the last 30 days, which obviously includes the launch of Lightfall, there have been 316,651 active Guardians. So when we look at the percentage of completions of the new Lightfall raid, Root of Nightmares, to the active Guardian base right now, that is about 14%. 14%, 14.38 other numbers to be exact. And you may be asking, why does this number matter to you? Well, the number ultimately matters to me, or I think is important in this conversation, and I'm just not seeing a lot of people talk about, is because 14 to 15% of the active community getting an achievement is still a relatively small number. If this number was 30, 40, even 50%, I think then there is a different conversation and feedback loop that we need to be having with Bungie. But as of right now, even with this being the most completed raid that we ever have had in Destiny 2 history, and I believe Destiny 1 history, the most completed raid in Destiny history, still 14 to 15%, 14.38 if you want to be specific, percent of the community completed this raid. That still means the majority of the community did not engage with this raid, or at least did not complete it at all. Now, ultimately, we don't know what Bungie thinks in terms of what their ideal number is. I'm assuming they do. Obviously, they have to have some formula, but I don't think they'd ever share that with the community because it would just be a never-ending fire dumpster. But whatever Bungie's goal actually was and what the community expectation was, this is still an exclusive achievement that only 14 or so % of the community actually has. Regardless of how easy or difficult you thought the raid was, this is not something that the majority of the community has or ever will get because contest mode is over. This is something that a relatively small portion of the community, and again, the 316,000 number is just active Guardians in the last 30 days. If we talk about all the registered account, there's literally, according to Bungie, millions of Guardians. So 45,000 of millions is even a smaller number. So I think we do ourselves a huge disservice when we actually don't keep things into full perspective about what this number means. Because when you compare 45,541 Root and Nightmare completions to Last Wishes 2 completions, yeah, oh my god, scary, it was too easy, there's too many people completing it. Yeah, there's a lot of fire sale activity, there's a lot of alarmist arguments that can be made with that piece of data. But when we look at that piece of data, the 45,541 Guardians in perspective of active Guardians, it is still an accomplishment and achievement that people should wear with pride, whether you are an OG, I was day one of Destiny 1, or if you're a new light, just getting in the game and you found a really cool LFG that let you get in there, you did add clear for the whole raid and you got the completion. So for me, it's just important that we actually keep that number rather than just like throwing that big number out there on Reddit and Twitter and then bashing Bungie, bashing Salta Greppo, bashing Data, all this like weird energy. Like, first off, chill out, calm down, stop being weird. Cyberbullying is literally not the move. And ultimately, a lot of what we're seeing in the community right now in terms of the negativity and toxicity, it doesn't surprise me. I've been playing this game for just about 7 years. I've been in it long enough. Some of my first entry points into this game, unfortunately, were really racist people who just said some very outlandish things. But the fact is, I was able to find people in this game who allowed me space to enjoy myself and enjoy the game and enjoy what this has to offer. And for me, going into my actual perspective on this, I feel like having such a quote unquote big number is actually a good thing. If we want to have civil discourse about whether the mechanics should have been tweaked a little bit, if the bosses should have had more health, let's have a respectful conversation. But I just don't understand how anyone is having a coherent, concise argument about how 45,541 Guardians completing the raid, being excited, having an achievement that get put on their chest, their sleeve, their new raid jacket, all these things that get them excited and invested in the game, how that ultimately that investment is a bad thing. I just haven't seen it. I have not seen a clear, concise argument against that. Whether you love or hate the state of the game, the Lightfall campaign, Nimbus, whatever your argument is, whether you love or hate it, the fact that we have so many eyes on Destiny right now, for me, as someone who gives social commentary, who does guides, who tries to help the community in every way that I can, more eyes on the community, to me, equates to more voices that we can add into our conversations to ultimately push Bungie to make the game that we want to play. While people are sitting here being upset about 45,541 Guardians getting the completion of a raid, which is still an in-game encounter, which is still only 14% of the active community, we miss out on what I believe to be the actual better conversation, which is what does it mean for all these people to get engaged in the game? And now, if you're a content creator, that's 45,541 people who could potentially be interested in your content. That's more people that can be a part of your communities, whether you're part of the PvP side, the PvE side, both, whatever you're interested in. These are more people that are engaged and excited about the game. Even having somebody like Shroud, who is well known in the gaming world, very experienced. I don't know him personally, but I have seen his clips and basically can pick up any game and just be a pro at it within like 2 minutes. Even he recently started Destiny and had some critiques of PvP and had some critiques of PvE. And his audience brings in new Guardian. His audience, the people that he attracts, allows for Destiny to have more vibrancy in the voices that we bring to our discussions, and ultimately what we can bring to Bungie to say, says right here, of all these new people that just got eyes on Destiny 2 and Lightfall and all the content, we're saying that actually like 62% is saying that, you know, they would have liked more boss health. So here's this feedback point, Bungie, let's see where we can move things and get better in the future. Again, like the saying goes, if you act like a hammer, if you run around, everything's going to look like a nail and you're just going to be bashing things rather than actually taking the time and patience and consideration. Ooh, yes, Destiny 2 community consideration. Taking the consideration to think about the larger picture. Your experience, whether you were top tier and you were team hard in the paint, shout out to them who finished the raid in 2 hours and like 32 minutes, whatever, 2.5 hours, right? Super quick. Or whether you were in LFGs like mine where it took 12, 13, 14, 15, 18, 24 hours to complete it. Your feelings about the raid are valid because you have an experience. Like you did the contest mode, you have an experience, speak on that experience. The problem comes when you try and talk down on other people's point of view rather than trying to seek to understand where somewhere else is coming from. Recently, Above, another creator, highly skilled, someone who I've watched content before, again, don't know him, but I've watched his content, highly skilled player, had a lot of feedback that most of which I agreed, coming from the perspective of him being a highly skilled player, having a highly skilled fire team and completing the raid fairly quickly. His comment section, Salta Greppo's comment section, so many people comment sections are just the definition of dumpster fire in terms of people just being toxic and negative. Ooh, you're elitist. Ooh, that. You know what, the fact, I'm not going to sit here and fault any of these top tier players for being top tier. They've practiced, they've build crafted, they practice some more, they put in the time and the work, and they do have a certain expectation of what the bar should be in terms of what their experience should be in a day one raid contest mode challenge. Now, do I always agree with them? Absolutely not. There's a lot of those hot takes I do not agree with because they just exist in a totally different realm than I think a lot of people, including myself, exist in when it comes to playing the game day to day. Me, as someone who transparently has attempted day ones before with different raid teams, but Root of Nightmares was my first actual completion. I have a different perspective. Does it give me the right to trash talk what other people are saying? No. But what we can do is actually seek to understand where folks are having these dialogues and then ultimately bring in those 45,541 completions, new Guardians, old Guardians, returning Guardians, new players, people who want. There were 80,000 plus people continuously for almost the full time. 80,000 plus people watching Datto's day one stream. All those people don't play Destiny. All those people don't know what to do. That's somebody's friend. That's someone's boyfriend, girlfriend, partner. That's somebody's roommate who just so happened to see their other roommate watching the day one streams on their big screen living room TV. There are so many different people that we can bring into the community, but when we take them from that experience of seeing the excitement and joy on people's faces the day of, doing the contest mode, engaging in that way, and then they actually get on Twitter, and then they actually get on Reddit, they actually get on YouTube and see the toxicity that goes on, we tear people away from this community that has the potential to be so much greater than what it currently is. So ultimately, do I think it was too easy or too difficult? You know what? It doesn't matter. What does matter is this 14% of the community, this 45,541 guardians who are able to get a completion of Root of Nightmares, tell their friends, tell their loved ones, tell their community. 80,000 plus people watching one person stream the day of. All these numbers, all these eyeballs on the game and the community, to me, matter more than any argument people can have about whether this was definitively too easy or definitively too difficult. What we should be spending our time and energy on is gathering all these people who potentially can be a part of what has the opportunity to be a really strong, positive community, bringing those people in and having some civil discourse. Now, for some folks, I know that's not what you wanted to hear. You wanted something a little bit more spicy, but not today. That's my take. That's where I'm at. I think ultimately, yeah, this was the best contest mode ever. The fact that we have so many more people coming into this community excites me. There's an opportunity for growth in all of us, and there's an opportunity for this community to be a lot better than the bickering and fighting and toxicity that we see every day. That's all I have for today. See y'all on the next one. Peace.